All right. We are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Rodriguez, here every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. Eastern time on the GSMC Sports Network. Here to talk about everything in terms of professional wrestling, all the action inside and outside of the ring, backstage drama, backstage, storylines developing. We also talk about superstars and their contract statuses, inactive reports, and also their injuries and negotiations and stuff like that. So, but just gonna reflect on what we talked about right quick. We had our WWE SmackDown review. We had my WWE Monday Night Raw preview. Sorry, excuse me, I just ate right now. Oh my god, our WWE Monday Night Raw preview. Then we talked about how we talked about Vince McMahon's new docu-series on Netflix and what to expect from that. So make sure you check that out. We also talked about AEW's All Out, and now we're going to talk about was AEW's All Out too violent. So let's go ahead and dig on into it. All right. So recently, obviously, you saw last Saturday, if you weren't watching, too much college football, you were tuning into AEW's All Out, and had a lot of intense matches, a lot of intense spots that a lot of wrestling fans are, starting to think if this is a product that they want to watch. Is this the sort of product that they want their kids to watch because of everything kind of surrounded it. It was kind of crazy. The brutality of the PLE sparked a lot of controversy, and it was kind of crazy. Some fans are now calling for AEW programming to be terminated. The lights out match between Strickland and Hangman Adam Page in a steel cage was one of the biggest matches that a lot of people didn't like. Swerve Strickland stabbed Hangman Adam Page in the head. Page retaliated with the syringe in the mouth and in the face, and a chair shot to end the matchup. Ultimately, earlier you saw Jon Moxley try to suffocate AEW World Heavyweight Champion Bryan Danielson, and even the fans were chanting like, "This is murder, this is murder," and it's just kind of crazy. One fan, she has a target of 50 signatures, and it's more than halfway full. A lot of, was it worth it? Was the juice worth the squeeze? I ultimately feel like maybe they went overboard just a little bit, but that's a lot of what AEW is. Like, they're going to be featured on HBO Max. They're going to be featured on, TNT. It's not really a company that you shy away from negative publicity from. You know what I mean? A lot of the time, and even in terms of Turner Television, it's been true for the longest time before, even when they teamed up with the Jim Crockett Promotions back in the early 80s, they weren't afraid to kind of show something on television that didn't keep you on the edge of your seat, first and foremost, but also at the same time, it shocked you. It shocked you. It's that shock factor that wrestling fans absolutely 1,010%. They eat it up. They eat it up. You can have all the promotions in the world, all the trash talking, but then when it comes into a fight in the ring, one person wins the other person. You're like, oh, okay, that's what it was all made up to be. But no, these guys generally hate each other, and that's something that a lot of AEW fans understood. After you saw Swerve Strickland, invade the house of Hangman Adam Page. Hangman Adam Page, burnt the house that Swerve Strickland, his childhood, house that he saw his mother lose, and it was foreclosed, and she couldn't do anything about it. All this ethos, pathos, logos, kind of rhetoric that, in terms of, trying to persuade you to watch AEW. I feel like it paid a lot. I feel like it did pay dividends on AEW's All Out. I didn't think that they went overboard. For me, I feel like it was like, it's wrestling with, you pay for pay-per-view. It's not like you're seeing this stuff on Dynamite, Collision, or Rampage. You're essentially paying for this. And so you kind of have to give people their pay dirt. Like, you got to give them what they paid to see. And a lot of fans knew that this was going to happen with an unsanctioned match. That's huge. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, you guys are way too sensitive. I get it. I have kids as well. I don't want them watching this kind of stuff you see right there in front of you right now. But also, kind of coming in fruition here, you see a lot of murder. You see a lot of violence. You see a lot of things in terms of movies, TV shows. Sometimes I have to even limit my kids on watching things on YouTube because you kind of look at some of the shorts that they have on there and you're like, dude, like, this is just mind rot. This is just brain rot right here. It's rotting kids' brain. And it's bullspit. Like it's something that you're like, you know what? I don't want you, I don't want you doing that. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could, a lot of kids, especially nowadays with technological advances in the digital era being so prominent, and to the point where if you don't have a cell phone or if you don't know what's going on in the YouTube world, and if you're in high school or middle school, you're kind of labeled as an outcast. You're a loser. And it sucks, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way, but with this new, it kind of forces you to kind of put a hold on social media, on, on streaming services and stuff like that. But at the same time, I feel like it overall reflects on what you are teaching your kids in terms of values at home. I did a research study about violent video games possibly causing, children to become school shooters. And that was the huge rap for me growing up. For me, I know 1,000% this is a touchy subject, so I'm not going to get too into it. But most of the time, there was underlying mental health issues due to problems at home. You're playing Call of Duty, you're doing all this stuff. You're watching violent television. You're kind of seeing things, and and the producers of the games, the producers of the movies and the television series, for by all means, they're not being like, oh, I care about what how this reflects and how this is going to, and be a figment of imagination for your children, whether they dream about it at night or they not. This is something that they just see dollar signs. They see dollar signs. They're like, you know what? We can sell a lot of this because kids are into this nowadays. And it's crazy. And like most of it is indeed, you see this imagery on the screen. So, I'm not 1,010% saying that it's not going to happen or just something absolutely negative. Like I mentioned before, I would never let my, kids kind of see this kind of stuff, on TV. Obviously, I watch it, but, I'm kind of old enough right now. My brain is semi developed. You know what I mean? I'm not, semi-developed, but overall, like they don't they don't gotta see this crap stuff yet. You know what I mean? Like when I mean stuff or crap or whatever, I'm not saying wrestling, not at all. Professional wrestling, it's a storyline. It's a storyline, and it should be respected. And AEW does have they do have the overall kind of modus apparatus of kind of being a little over the top, but that's what's getting them ratings. They're not appealing to kids. They're PG. They're way beyond PG-13. I believe when they go to HBO Max, maybe they might even push it a little more. A lot of fans think because you see these figurines on every Walmart, Target, shelves where people where kids want to buy these action figures, where you have the Hangman Adam Page, where you have Jon Moxley, where you have a lot of kids that are looking up to these superstars, and they're like, oh, if we're gonna fight somebody, I want to stick a syringe into somebody, But overall, I do feel like it does kind of reflect on what exactly is happening inside the home life, and 9 times out of 10, violent behavior in teens, in young adults, and especially within kids is what's happening at home. Like it's like a blanket statement to say, or it's like a cop out. It's like a cop out to say, oh, it's just violence on video games. But doing the research, it backs it up. It backs it up that that's not necessarily exactly what's happening. Like of course there are always there are always those, there's always the, maybe that is maybe that is what happens. Maybe that's exactly what happens. And for that, Godspeed, God, I entertainment in the world today is, oh, God. Like if you're not limiting your children to like what they're watching on TV, essentially, you kind of have to, take that blame sandwich and eat it yourself. But most of the time, a lot of people just like, stick their kids in front of the TV, give them their tablets, let them play phones, let them play Roblox, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not hating on that. My kids play Roblox too. But it's just much like everything in life, it's an easy, even, kind of keel with a healthy parents that love them. It's I know this world. I know this world, society, human nature. It's not always like that, and it's a damn freaking shame. Like I said, we're not a political podcast. We talk about wrestling, but just to wrap it up real quick. But I it's crazy how some people, kind of act with their kids and so like I don't know. It's just, like I said. Anyways, talking about wrestling. Talking about wrestling. So, anyways, so the fan also expressed her deep concern over the graphic acts of violence. She made accusations of racism, violence toward women, and she said this, and I quote: "I am drafting this petition out of poised concern. As a horrific viewer, I witnessed AEW broadcasts involving graphic disputes and violence and murder, including a scene where a man was suffocated and another man had a needle stabbed through his face. That I gotta be honest, that's intense. Yeah, that's you're not wrong for thinking that. You're not wrong for not wanting your kids to watch that or like to, kind of prevent other kids of kind of having to endure that. It makes an impact on the viewers, and something that WWE, the reason why they are so successful is because they appeal to young viewers. During the John Cena era, you had a whole bunch of kids like John Cena. Obviously, right now in AEW, you don't have anybody like John Cena. Or I'm not trying to say every wrestling promotion should have this John Cena kind of personality, but overall, like it's kind of hard. It is kind of hard, especially if you're a wrestling promotion trying to, kind of become, trying to become successful, and the lady in the petition they cited the American Psychological Association highlighting long-term effects on violent media when children consume it. The level of violence on AEW is actually, it is pretty high. It is pretty high. But once again, it was a pay-per-view. It was a pay-per-view. 1,010%. Tony Khan refused to answer any questions about the subject matter. And this is something that they got to think about in terms of their TV rights, like we were talking about before. Television streaming services like on HBO Max, they see violence on TV and movies, yeah, but you also don't want to, think that that's like a way for you to get out of it. Like, you know what I mean? At the same time, you kind of have to protect your franchise. And like I said, people do, they buy action figures, tickets, merchandise. So a lot of times, I feel like AEW is not off the hook, but at the same time, I feel like they're not really under much scrutiny, as a lot of people might hold them accountable for. But like I said, it's pay per view for a reason. I remember during the Attitude Era, I remember when WWF, they pushed the envelope as well. They weren't the only ones. 1,010%, like even before, with the women, and it's I don't want to mention too much of it. Like I said, I don't want to, ruffle any feathers out there. But I don't know. It's just kind of crazy. What entertains people and what doesn't. If you're trying to appeal to the masses, obviously the age demographic between wrestling fans is age 19 to 41. So, trying to appeal to a younger audience, I feel like is a must. 1,010% is a must. But at the same time, always check out the ratings on the television. Find out what's going to happen at, pay per view. If you're buying something on pay per view, especially a wrestling event or like a UFC or boxing, it's going to be unfiltered. I feel like it is going to be unfiltered. So 1,010%. Like when you go to the movie theaters and you buy a ticket stub and like, oh, this is rated PG-13 or something like that. Just got to pay attention. You just got to, look out for the signs. Make sure you teach your kids, right from wrong, and be like, okay, that's fake. It's choreographed. It's not what you see on TV is not real. And I'm the person to, say that because on the first episode of SmackDown, I watched the episode of SmackDown where Triple H was forced to run the gauntlet. I remember it was, for him to get in that six-pack match between in Unforgiven. He was trying to go for the WWF title. He was in a chokeslam competition, Inferno match, backstage brawl with Mankind, British Bulldog strap match. And then there was the casket match between Viscera and Mideon and Triple H. And I cried. I got to be honest, I cried. When Triple H was rolled into that casket, me, as a young wrestling fan, I thought he was dead. I was like, dude, are you kidding me? They're just showing this on live TV. What the hell? But in reality, it was like, dude, like he comes out of the casket and then he fights like he fights like 2 or 3 more matches. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, I get it. I get it. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me tonight. Like I said, we got my boy Emran's soccer podcast in 11 minutes, so do not go anywhere. Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Like always, Superman punch that like a subscribe button to the show. Follow the show, follow the network here, the GSMC Sports Network. We do love it all. Peace, love, and positivity 1,010% of the time. If it is criticism, we love all feedback. Follow us on Twitter/X, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for more content and updates. And like I always say, if I have not made you a wrestling fan by now, we got basketball, off-season talk with my boy Nelson, the GSMC Basketball Podcast. All you fantasy goers out there, make sure you tune into Chris Shepard's GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, where you find out your stardoms, your situms, your dropums, who to draft, who to trade for. You find out all that, even the spreads, the over-unders. Tune into that show if you want to, kind of groom up, maybe win some money. Anyway, we also got football, NFL. First week just ended with the New York Jets losing to the San Francisco 49ers, which was kind of a shock. I had my money on the Jets. Maybe I should have tuned into Chris Shepard's show to be, kind of steer the right way. But overall, we got Kenneth with the GSMC Football Podcast, my boy Manny with the GSMC Chip Shop Football Podcast. We got all around sports. We got sports by GSMC with Jeremy. We got the GSMC Sports Podcast with my boy TJ. We also have Tommy with college football, every Saturday. Kind of crazy. I've recently became a Texas Longhorns fan because one of the residents I care for at work, he is a huge Longhorns fan. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just adopt this team. They had a dominating win against Colorado State, and now they beat Michigan, which is actually pretty darn cool. I thought, that maybe I jumped on this bandwagon the right time. That'd be kind of crazy. Maybe I'm the good luck charm. Maybe, just maybe. Anyways, make sure you tune into all these podcasts. A lot of badass podcast people doing everything that's great. Obviously, I look up to these guys. I learn every single time I listen to them. So yeah, don't be ashamed to sign up for the GSMC podcast. GSMC Sports Podcasting Network. And just like random. This is random. I know it's not necessarily wrestling, but overall, growing up, I watched a lot of movies that had James Earl Jones. And I know a lot of people, James Earl Jones passed away today at the age of 93. From The Sandlot, when he was the blind guy, he had the dog Hercules, and, he had that iconic line where he's like, you know what, he's like, you're not in trouble, because Smalls was pissed off about how he knocked over that Babe Ruth autographed baseball into his yard. He's like, you're not in trouble. You're dead where you stand. In reality, he knew Babe Ruth. He helped them out. He got them a great baseball instead. It was pretty cool. The ultimate voice of Darth Vader. He was also Mufasa. And it was just, took a hit today. I got to be honest. When I saw that, I was a little shook. I know, James Earl Jones has been around the movie industry for such a long time, and why does this create, relative simplicity in terms of wrestling fans? He's a storyteller. He's a main important storyteller. A lot of times, you kind of hear his iconic voice in a lot of like narratives and stuff like that. So, God, rest in peace. Thoughts and prayers are with James Earl Jones in heaven, also his family. So 1,010% got to respect the man they call, James Earl Jones. A lot of iconic movies. I definitely, I watched a lot of his movies growing up. So 1,010%, like I said, this is the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast. Stay beautiful. Most importantly, I love you.